Brooklyn. Welcome to Stoop Series. You're in for a wonderful evening of musical performance and conversation. Music is the human vernacular that brings us all together. And today we have a wonderful person and his wonderful ensemble who will further speak about the intersection of genres and how it comes together to make wonderful, wonderful sound. This is Where I'm From, Jazz, Hip-Hop, and Political Consciousness with Mr. Keyon Harrold. One of the reasons we're here is to talk about the intersection of genres, particularly with hip hop and jazz, because you hear that a lot on this particular album, and a lot of the stuff that you've done in the past. You worked with Maxwell, you worked with D'Angelo, and things like that. I want to know about those first two songs of those genres that you heard that really galvanized you. Tell me about that first jazz song you heard, and tell me about that first hip hop song you heard, and why those experiences were the same.
Well, ultimately, what you're getting at is my thought about music is I really only have two genres in my head, and one of those is good music, and one of them is music that I don't really like so much. Ultimately, hip-hop, soul music, you know, music from the roots, black music, rock music, I love it all. It's all a part of me, so I don't really segregate what I think is good and bad. Even though certain things have certain technical prerequisites in it, my idea of music is what makes you feel good, what goes to your soul. So when I think of, you know, jazz, I mean, when I first heard Miles, you know, that was the same as when I heard, you know, Stevie Wonder, Overjoyed, you know, or when I think of that, you know, when I think of a vibrant thing, you know, all of that stuff is music that goes to my soul, goes to my conscious, that makes me move, that makes me think, you know, what can I create like that, or how could I leave the world in a better place the way that music left the world in a better place, ultimately.
That's what's up. And there's not too much difference as far as where they intersect with each other. You know, a lot of people will think that jazz and hip hop, or jazz and soul, or hip hop and rock, they're like night and day. But, you know, if you really look hard enough, you see the similarities with all of it. You see
Absolutely.
how they all
I mean, there's only 12 notes. There's only 12 tones, I mean, in Western music that you can really hit on. I mean, I guess you can kind of get in between. If some people play out of tune, then maybe it's more notes. But, you know, it's only 12 notes. And the idea of the thing that changes what genre we call a genre is typically what Quincy Jones said, it's the rhythm. The rhythm changes what the genre is, the beat.
Yeah.
And on the drums, we have one of the best beat boxers, beat masters in the world in Charles Haynes. You know?
Give it up for Charles Haynes, everybody.
I guess maybe we could try something and show the reason why the beat is the thing that changes, you know, what the genre is. I guess one of the songs that influenced me when I was young was maybe Autumn Leaves by Miles Davis. Let's start with that. And then, you know, we'll do it traditionally, and then we'll change it up. We'll change the genres. We'll skew the genre. Any of y'all know that classic record, Miles Davis? Come on. Maybe Dilla would have did it like that. I said maybe Dilla would have flipped it like that. It's the same thing. We only been dealing with a couple different kinds of chords. There's only so many you could actually play.
Yeah.
The thing that really changed the feeling of the music was the rhythm. So the idea of changing, you know, jazz, hip hop, rock, soul, pop music, the only thing that's really changing more so is how the beat is moving.
Yeah. So one of my favorites is Ahmad Jamal, Swahili Land. And if you guys know the song Stakes is High by De La Soul, that dope outro, it's just amazing how these hip hop cats made people fall in love with jazz, and they had no idea that they were making them do it.
Absolutely.
So with that said, what do you think about the idea of when they take things like they sample stuff like that, and because sampling has never been something that's been given its just due, you know what I'm saying, as far as creativity. But I have to admit, I heard you referencing a Love Supreme. You had a little riff of a Love Supreme, I think, in there on the voicemail song. I heard that little real quick in there.
That's funny. I didn't think about it that way, but you know, it's like, you know, sounds of the ancestors that live with me. You know, I don't know what's going to really come out. A lot of stuff goes in. You know, I've been thinking about music and taking in music for so many years that I don't really know, you know, what's going to come out at whatever time. Obviously, there's nothing new under the sun. There's only a couple notes that you could actually refer.
Mm-hmm. So what would you classify your music as being? I know a lot of people or so-called jazz musicians would have a problem with the word. For those of you who don't know, the history of the word jazz, we'll be here all night talking about it, but it derives from negative connotations. So with that said, a lot of people like Miles Davis refer to his music as social music and not jazz, or Nina Simone and Lee Morgan referred to it as black classical music. Some people, Nicholas Payton calls it black American music, you know, and so many people that do what you do what people like Robert Glasper do or Terrace Martin do, that mix all these genres, but they still classify it as jazz because you're doing it from an instrumental concept. So what would you refer your music as?
I look at it as, I mean, many of those labels, you know, black classical music, you know, African American music, music from the soul, Miles says social music. You know, I identify with all of those, but you know, I look at it more simple than that. I look at it as good music, music that people can feel. That's more important than anything to me, because many people who don't even know what jazz is can identify with my music. So that's more important to me. Ultimately, I look at my music as, you know, all these people here identify with their cultural roots as something else, but deeply all American. So the way I see my music is it has a lot of influences, a lot of cultural ties to it, but it ultimately is good music. You know, jazz is one of the languages that I speak. You know, hip-hop is one of the languages that I speak. Ultimately, it's about the music that I'm giving. I use all of those bits and pieces to make the kind of compositions that I'm playing.
Yeah, it's really the dialect or the way that you choose to speak it, whether you choose to speak it through your trumpet, or someone like Q-Tip uses, or Dilla uses an MPC, right, or they use a sampler and things like that. You know what I'm saying?
Ultimately, I mean, for me, just getting into music, I mean, all these guys should actually speak on how they got into music. When I moved to New York City, in 1999, I thought I was going to be the late great jazz trumpet player of the century, you know, which is cool. But my first professional gig was working with Common, so that totally changed everything I thought about how I'm going to approach music, in a good way. Or else I probably would have been stuck. You know, I would have been a jazz police or something like that. But now I'm totally open to all kind of music. Long as the music makes me feel and I can, you know, touch the people in what I'm bringing, that's what's most important to me.
Mm-hmm. Was it shocking to you to know like someone like Common wanted to work with live musicians? Because typically at that time, even in the late 90s, there wasn't a lot of, well, the perception wasn't a lot of live musicians working with hip-hop musicians, even though history would prove otherwise. But what was your first impression when you got that call from him and the experience of working with him?
It was very cool. I mean, ultimately, around that time, you had amazing records being made. You had D'Angelo Voodoo. You had Erykah Badu's Mama Gun.
Yeah.
You had
Like Water for Chocolate.
Like Water for Chocolate.
All in
you
the
had
same studio,
Bilal's,
guys.
You know, Bilal's album.
First Born Second.
All those things were going on at the same time, and I was, you know, this little kid being taken into Electric Lady because I was going to the new school. So they would, you know, drag me in there, and they'd be working on so-and-so session. Somebody be upstairs, somebody be downstairs. Dilla was in there, you know, Erykah Badu was in there, and it was just an amazing trip that really changed my perception on how I should approach music. You know, after I went through that process of working with Common, I started, you know, I wanted to be a music producer. So that changed me. That changed my outlet, it changed my horizon musically.
That was an amazing time. The Soulquarian time is what it was called, the Soulquarian era. Didn't You Know, Untitled, How Does It Feel, you know, The Light, all coming out of those sessions, Soul Sister, dope time. And the fact that you were in the middle of that essential time that was turning the century, it really speaks to how your music is starting to change other people. And with that said, we're gonna let you continue with some of that music.
Andrea Pizziconi and I wrote this song about the Trump era, pre him being, you know, selected as the president.
No, he was president.
Was it?
Yeah, he was already president.
Okay. Well, anyway, this song...
It's going so fast and so slow at the same time.
Anyway, seriously, so this song, you know, the lyrics speak volumes about, you know, what's actually going on. It really does feel like a circus show. Daily, we don't really know what's going to happen, what's the next headline going on. So ultimately, to me, this song is modern day blues to me, because I pray for our country. Anyway, would you like to say anything about this song, Andre?
I think, you know, when we wrote it, it was meant to be kind of a dystopian distortion of reality in some ways. I mean, it was kind of taking what we saw in the headlines and pushing it to an extreme. But unfortunately, since we wrote this song, it was last May, things have gotten so much worse. And that's almost, I think at the time, we went back and forth and, you know, Key worried, was it too political? Are we putting ourselves in a box? And when you listen to it, it's almost not political enough. It's almost not accurate enough. And, you know, you're gonna hear certain references that just happened a few days ago that it just seems like a very sad, prophetic inspiration. I wish we had not been so prophetic.
Seriously. I mean, ultimately, as artists, our job is to, you know, paint the times. Nina Simone was very, very keen to talk about that our job is to basically, you know, let it all out. So this is circus show. This is, to me, modern day blues to what's going on in the world.
but you can't build a crazy wall. Police searching, neighbors hiding in fear. Pay the taxes, didn't know they weren't welcome here.
Headlines blowing my mind. It's time to call the higher spirits. Tell me what the hell's going on. What's going on? It's like a goddamn circus show here in America. What the hell's going on? Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
Russia's feeding all the news I hear. Fake news realize they don't really care. Police shooting like a carnival game. Hit a black bullseye and you won't get blamed. Started drilling over sacred land. If the earth burns, doesn't matter who gets slammed. Presidential, where do we begin? When a little point is more about governing.
Headlines blowing my mind. It's time to call the higher spirits. Tell me what the hell's going on. What's going on? It's like a goddamn circus show here in America. What the hell's going on? Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
Took 2 years to get the troops back home. But if Uncle Sam pays, why not have another go? AG uses laws to stoke hate. Someone tell that man it's not 58. Presidential's now a family tree. File the FBI and get away scot-free. Oh Lord, 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 what the hell's going on?
Headlines blowing my mind. It's time to call the higher spirits. Tell me what the hell's going on. What's going on? It's like a goddamn circus show here in America. What the hell's going on? Da 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 da. Da 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 da. What the hell's going on? Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
The hell's going on?
Da 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 da.
It's like a goddamn
Da da.
circus show.
Da 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 da.
Someone save us from
Da da
what's
da
going
da.
on.
Circus show every freaking day.
So what you guys did is you mirrored what's going on and you talked about the prophetic nature of the music. I just wanted to have us talk about more. I just wanted to have us talk more about that. This music has grown so much from Fight the Power, Mississippi, Goddamn, Stakes is High, like I said before, The Message, so many great songs, What's Going On, of course, Rhythm Nation, and now down to this. So tell me about, do you feel like as an artist you're obligated to reflect it, or is it just something that is inherently natural to you to reflect all of these things that go on?
For me, life is real. Have to be honest and authentic as possible, or my music personally doesn't work. You know, maybe some people are not connected in that way, but the way I grew up, it basically it wired me to say whatever it is that I'm going through. I mean, I don't know if many of you know I'm from Ferguson, so that's everything that happened there. Thinking about Mike Brown and the whole situation of systemic racism, systemic oppression, I totally experienced that. When I moved to New York City is when I realized that things are different. I didn't realize that. So for me, I internalize things and I have to get it out as an artist. I wrote the song "NB Lament" in that way because this kid was taken, and I imagine myself being a football player, being a tall black kid in Ferguson, getting stopped. Before I moved to New York City, at the age of 17, I had been arrested 3 times, strip searched, never charged for anything, by literally just being black. And I know exactly what that was like. So I feel I have to reflect what's going on, or else people just won't know. Me being able to see the world and to interface with people like you, I get a chance to really be the mouthpiece and be the front line of, oppression that is actually real. Fortunately, my life has changed and I'm able to look back on it. And if I didn't reflect that stuff, if I didn't go through it, I wouldn't have a story. I wouldn't have a journey to put out, in front of you guys, ultimately.
Do you think that it's necessary for music to be as effective as it is if you're reflecting on turmoil? I have this belief that a lot of music, and black music in particular, that if there's a lightning rod, a rallying cry to reflect on, whether it's the war on drugs, whether it's what happened with Ferguson, what happened with Trayvon Martin, the civil rights movement, when you hear the music of that time, it reflects that turmoil, and it ultimately, to me, always feels like it's stronger, it's more potent. Do you feel like the music suffers somewhat when there's no
When it's
turmoil?
peaceful?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know. It depends. Some people thrive on the good times. Some people write beautiful music and they reflect that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also a visceral experience when you're going through something, when something is actually, when you're painting injustices in notes, when you're painting injustices in sounds and vibrations on how it feels versus what it looks like. I think you have to be really connected as an artist to be able to transcend that, to reflect that. You have to be connected, and you have to be open and really be a vessel to to be honest, man. It's really, really tough, and it's really easy for me to say, you know what, I'm not really from Ferguson. I'm the Mike Brown thing, it happens sometimes, or it happened to me, but I really won't speak on it. It's very, very easy to be that person. I just can't be that person. I have to be the person who speaks out about Donald Trump, who has to be the person. I have to be an activist, or else nobody pays attention to it. There's so many things going on in the world right now. We got the sexism, we got the bigotry, we got the racism, we got the homophobia. We have so many different things, injustices that affect the person next to you. We have to be the person, be the bigger person, to just stand up and say, listen, you know what, that's not right. We're all the same people. Let's be one. If that person is suffering, I'm suffering too. Am I my brother's keeper? So as a musician, as the kind of musician that I am, I have to be that person. I have to be an activist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You talk about prophetic. You mentioned prophetic, how prophetic that song was. It's amazing how much of music like that from the past and present is always more prophetic. I mean, if you listen to any song on the What's Going On album, for instance, it actually makes more sense today than it did in 1971. Village Ghetto Land makes more sense now than it did in 1976. Fight the Power means more now than it did in 1989. They Don't Care About Us means more now than it did in 1995. So when you make this record and other records like MB Lament and its sequel, When Will It Stop? You have to ask yourself, when will it stop? I mean, as an artist, are you trying to help people to be acknowledged and to get that knowledge and change them now, or do you think it's important for people of future generations to hear it and say, okay, that's how we do it? Because we're always repeating the sins of the past. So do you ever get discouraged that this music is not doing what it's supposed to, or is that not the case? Is that not what the music's for?
I guess, you know, you have to, you kind of can't worry about it. You kind of got to put it out in the universe, and whoever needs that inkling, whoever needs that nudge, whoever needs to be impacted by the music, by the words, by your actions, they will get it, you know. Whether it's today or whether it's in 20 years, they will get it. You know, the Creator has a master plan, and if he uses you, it will, you know, touch the people that it needs to touch, ultimately. You just have to be an open and willing vessel to give freely.
How do you manifest the balance in your artistry when you take these political songs and these social songs, but then you take music like The Musician and things of that nature? You had a song that was inspired by your son. How do you reconcile that balance between feeling like you have to be an activist with your art, but at the same time still reflecting the positivity, reflecting the need for people to have a good time and to forget about your problems for a while? Because sometimes the balance is always off, which is why there's so much, you know, turmoil sometimes. How do you reconcile that balance in your music and your life?
It's a tough, you know, once again, like you said, it's a balance. It depends on what you're feeling at the moment. It's 24 hours, you may feel different in 10 seconds. You know, something might happen in 10 seconds, or somebody might make you laugh, somebody might make a joke. You know, you gotta be able to be open, once again, and be a vessel to be honest and live life and experience life. Smell the roses sometimes. Sometimes you gotta, you know, take your what do you call it, your lashes when you're not doing right. It's a process. You gotta be open to it all.
While we're traveling and getting close, just trust me now. See, I know this road, you've been lost for so long. I know a better way, just let me navigate into your soul. Why run from the pain that you feel, just to numb all the things that are real? Open up to the pain that you feel. You will reveal the right road that will kill you.
Lesson I learned from trying to run away was that the cost was so much dearer that I paid. But deep within me, I always had the strength to face another day with the courage to begin.
While we're traveling and getting close,
We're getting so close.
just trust me now. See, I know this road. You've been lost for so long. I know a better way. Just let me navigate into your soul. this road. You've been lost for so long. I know a better way. Just let me navigate into your soul.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you. God bless you.
The cool thing about the intersection between the two is, especially when we were coming up in like the 90s and the 80s, and you see all these awesome, dope hip-hop songs coming out, like the Flip Fantasia joint, that's everybody's dancing to, Cantaloupe Island by Herbie Hancock, not knowing exactly what it is, or the rebirth of his Slick, you know what I'm saying? Funky, funky. I'm cool like that. 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 I'm cool. I'm cool.